Okay, so Lynn, is that you? Have you been able to get on? I think you're muted, Lynn.
I am. Here I am.
There you are. Yay. Look at us.
Yes, hello.
Um,
Okay.
well, I'll just make some introductory comments. It looks like we have a couple people already on the Zoom, but I know we still have a couple minutes before the scheduled time. So for those of you that are already here, I'm going to assume you're way more savvy with Zoom than I am. So go ahead and if you have chats, go ahead and drop them in the chat feature and we'll try to answer questions as we go if you have questions. So that's how that's going to work. There were a couple of chats that came in ahead of time on the Facebook Live page, and we'll just touch on those briefly because I think they related more to our last conversation. But for anybody who's new, Lynn and I have been doing these collaborative discussions several times now, and they're great fun. I enjoy them. I think they're useful for people.
So do I.
So anyway, it's good to see you, Lynn, and happy belated anniversary.
Thank you.
Is it 51 years? Is that what you said?
That's right. 51 years.
Amazing. It's amazing. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's see. We're right on time. I was going to start by reading a quote by Podolsky, which I thought was very suiting because you quote him on your website, Lynn, and obviously the Complete Training of Horse and Rider is a seminal book here for most of us. What's interesting though is he has a little section in the back about rewards, and probably our thinking and approach about rewards has evolved a little bit with time, but maybe not for some people. But I think when we talk about rewards, many of us, it's helpful to get clear on what is our purpose with using rewards for our horse. And he has this quick little quote that I'll read. He says, "There are many ways to gain the horse's confidence and regard in order to make him a pleasure in his work. The thinking rider will soon find out that his horse is not only grateful for any reward, but will be stimulated to satisfy his rider." And I think those are helpful words because sometimes there's two camps I find riders fall in. There's ones that are really disciplinarians that maybe don't use rewards or treats like we talked about last time. Or maybe all the way on the opposite end are the people who might have a disbelief that a horse can work and perform hard at a high level and still enjoy its work. I believe you can have, I see it. I see horses that go out and perform at a high level that really do enjoy it. At least they appear to enjoy it from my criteria. Anyway, I want to hand the floor over to you a little bit, Lynn, and this was your idea for a topic. And so maybe you could tell us why you're enthusiastic about it.
Well, rewards are a great way of getting our horses engaged and making them into thinking partners who are excited and enthusiastic about doing what we want, because rewards create positive feelings. And naturally, we want to be with somebody who makes us feel better. So when we do things that make our horses feel better about their time with us and about themselves, then they become more engaged and more interested. But rewards have sort of gotten connected with food in the horse world, but there's a lot of other ways that we can reward horses. And there's different kinds of ways that the rewards can work. We have extrinsic rewards, which are rewards that we give a horse. So that could be food, but it could also be something like praise or scratches or a rest break or an opportunity to play. And those are all rewards we give to a horse, but there are also intrinsic rewards, which means what Jack was referring to a few minutes ago, an activity that a horse finds inherently rewarding. And those, when the activity itself is rewarding, we don't need to be doing anything to give the horse a reward. He's getting the reward from the good feeling that the activity is giving him. So
Yeah, I love that. Intrinsic rewards is not like in my world, it's not terminology I bump into a lot. So I appreciated when you brought it up and spelled it out for us. I know what you mean by it, but that language isn't, I wouldn't say it's common vernacular in my realm. I think
no.
that's fun when we talk together, because maybe this is something that started to be talked about more, that idea that horses can find that sense of reward inside somehow. Is that your impression?
Oh, yes. And you were saying before that there's horses who appear to have to enjoy their work. Uh, I've ridden horses who love to jump so much that if you cantered past a jump, you had to steer out around it carefully, or they would choose to go over it. That's got to be a horse who enjoys jumping. My sister used to use jumping as a reward for her dressage horse. Dressage was kind of boring for her, but she loved to jump. So do a good dressage move, you get to go over a jump. And that's an example of inherently rewarding. We give the horse the opportunity to do the activity that he finds rewarding. But coming back to the extrinsic rewards that we can give horses, when we praise a horse, I was always taught to be very calm, very quiet with a horse. But I was taught when I work with my dogs to be very happy and excited and really get my voice up and get the energy going. And I find my horses actually respond better to that. And I watched my husband have an interesting interaction with his mare recently. He wanted to teach her to pick up her food bucket. And he was giving her food rewards for this, but she wasn't getting the idea. She just wasn't. She'd pick it halfway off the floor and drop it. And then he put on his excited dog training voice. You can do it, Shiloh. Come on, give it another try. You can pick it up. And pretty soon she was picking it up chest height to hand to him. So I think that the value of our voice as a reward has been very underestimated. And that might be somewhat because most of us don't learn to use it in a really positive, enthusiastic sort of way. And horses definitely respond to that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. In fact, so I have 2 points to follow on from that. One is just today, as I was kind of going about my work, I was reflecting on how this concept of rewards is colored so much by our own perspective, right? So if as a person, I automatically assume that like arena work is drudgery, if that is my embedded, if I have like a subconscious bias about that, of course I'm going to like project that a little bit onto the horses that I'm working with, right? And so I might not perceive, I know somebody just dropped a chat here that her horse likes going over poles. Like that's a little bit of a reward. But if you're coming from a place of assuming that arena work just stinks, you're going to miss those opportunities. It's the same with like working out. Like I love working out. I love going for runs and getting my heart rate up. For people who think that is the worst thing ever, they're already bringing a certain mentality to it, and I was thinking about that voice because you and I have talked about that before, the verbal intonations and praise. And this ties into something else you have mentioned, Lynn, on just try some things, experiment. So maybe your horse, I have a horse, I know he responds to very enthusiastic, like, good boy, more so than when I touch him or pet him. I think they're all a little different, but you're great at giving permission to just try, experiment.
Absolutely. And I think the research is not showing this yet, but I have a sneaking suspicion that when we have a connection with our horse, when we have the relationship that I call protector leadership, where the horse feels safe with us, where they look to us for their safety and security and feel good being with us, I think that when we have that connection, our praise means more to them. My first foster pony, when I was training him, I did use clicker to some extent, and I would click something that he did well, and he wouldn't even reach for the treat. What he wanted was the attaboy from me. Oh, good boy, Snickers, you did that really well. That meant more to him. And I think he's unusual that way, but it says the possibilities there. That praise from us as a person they're bonded with really matters to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so neat. And I know that you have also drawn a parallel with social learning and that being a form of maybe intrinsic reward. But certainly I think what you just mentioned is a good example of that. Like to have praise from his protective leader for that particular
Mhm,
horse was a strong,
mhm.
or more so than, hey, here's a carrot or scratch or something.
Right. And then I think scratching and stroking is another good non-food reward. You sometimes see people patting horses, and if you watch the horse's body language, you can see, and the same thing that researchers have validated, if you pat a horse, then the more enthusiastic you get, generally the harder you pat him, and the more likely his head is to come up like, oh, this is, what the heck? I just worked hard for you. Why are you slapping me? But the stroking makes more sense to them, and so does scratching. So, and I always thought of that as, well, let's do that mostly around the neck and shoulders and withers, where it's the mutual grooming area. But I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who say belly scratches are the thing, that horses will work for belly scratches. And somebody in the Horse Agility Club adopted a feral pony. She had not yet attempted to put a halter on this pony, but this pony had done an entire agility course working solely for belly scratches.
Wow.
One obstacle, get a belly scratch. Go to the next obstacle, get another belly scratch. And so, of course, this horse was associating this person with wonderful things happening. Oh, I play her little games and I get belly scratches. So that's a real strengthening of the bond and reassurance to the horse. Nothing bad's happening. She's not getting corrected for not doing something. All she's getting is rewards for doing it.
That's really, I love that story, first of all. And that's really interesting because I think sometimes, maybe more so with actual treats, but I think sometimes rewards and bribery get conflated a little bit. Sometimes in the language people use, I'll hear people say like they're going to front load their horse with some treats so they have a good ride, for example, or, oh, we're going to go over the horse trailer, so I'm going to do this thing to reward him first. And I think that's more bribery than it is reward. But I love the example you gave. To me, just seems so pure, so purely a reward, and keeping separate our human projection of here, let me bribe you with some goodies and hope that'll go in my favor, which usually doesn't, right?
Yeah, right. Rest breaks are also a good reward. There's a I was told by an instructor at one point, well, letting my horse walk on a loose rein is a reward. Well, it's only a reward if he thinks it's a reward. I mean, the definition of the reward is something that makes the recipient feel good, or that he cares about. And if he doesn't care about walking on a loose rein, then that's not a reward, which is the same reason that a release is not a reward. It's communication, but it's not a reward. But a rest break is a reward that if a horse tends, especially if a horse tends to be kind of a low energy horse and he's actually just had to do some sort of work, then maybe a chance to just stand, relax, maybe get some stroking, get some attaboys, and then be ready to go back to work.
I think, can I stop you right there? Because I think that's really important what you just said, where a release is not a reward. Because I think sometimes people think it is, like the pressure goes away when the horse did the right thing. There's the release. That's the reward. So then he'll choose to do that more often. I think sometimes that's the thinking. And this is really interesting because also in the Podolsky section that I just wrote, he has early language that said, well, the reward is when the punishment stops. That's why I think we've evolved, right? So yeah, say a little bit more about that. Release is not reward. I think this is important.
Well, release it's communication. We've given a cue, so there's a little pressure involved. And when we give the release, that's telling the horse, yes, you've done the correct thing. That's information. But if you think of a release as a reward, I think that takes you down the wrong path, because clearly horses do not think so. Because horses, studies have shown that horses who are trained solely with pressure and release avoid people. They see people coming, they go to the other side of the paddock or the pasture. So horses clearly don't think of a release as a reward. But if we're using the pressure in a way that provides communication, then it's more like dance partners. We'll never get rid of pressure and release. Horses absolutely have to yield to pressure. It can save their life if they get trapped sometime.
Mhm.
They need to know to yield to pressure. But let's not kid ourselves that releasing that pressure is a reward. But pressure and release also doesn't have to be a negative. If you're riding with very gentle cues, then your communication with your horse, the pressure and release, is kind of like a conversation, like dance partners.
Mhm.
You don't expect to dance with somebody and have no pressure. You need to have that communication. So we think I set that in a different category as communication rather than reward.
I love how you said that, and very clear. That makes great sense. And I think it's important. I do think that's important what you just said. Yeah. We both thought this topic was important because there was so much that came out of our last conversation on using treats, feeding the horse treats, and in what context do you do that? And so I think it's fun for me to think through how, because horses are so different, on what are the different ways I think I reward each one. But I wanted to hear from you. Is there kind of a system you go through, or how do you figure that out, Lynn? Like, I know you know your own horses really well, but if you just encountered one, or we're doing a clinic or something, which ones do you work through? Do you have certain ones you work through?
Um, that's a good question, Jack. And I don't know that I've thought systematically about that. And that might be very useful to do that. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking that I kind of go with the situation. While I'm riding and I want to reward a horse, then my voice is the first thing. But also then, it's easy to reach down and give the horse a stroke or a scratch. And then within a course of a ride, then a rest break depends on when that naturally comes about, like maybe between exercises or after the horse has worked particularly hard. And the other non-food reward I like to use is play. And by play, I mean an activity the horse enjoys. So my horse is kind of funny. He really doesn't like, Bronze doesn't like doing shoulder in. It's just, that's work. But he likes doing haunches in. And so I'll sometimes ask for shoulder in and he'll offer haunches in instead, like, can I negotiate? And so if a horse offers something, I log that as, this sounds like maybe something that he likes. And so when he's done a good shoulder in, then I'll ask him for haunches in. So it may not be exactly play, but it's an activity I know he enjoys. Mm-hmm. My husband's horse, Shiloh, loves to do turns on the forehand. So little reward for Shiloh after she's done a couple of nice trot circles or figure eights. Then we stop and we let her do some turns on the forehand, or like my sister letting her horse jump after doing some good dressage work. So I think of that kind of as play, but you can also get more inventive with play. And, tricks have been kind of looked down upon. And I think it's a very underestimated way of engaging our horses really positively. So Brandy knows how to do a few tricks. One of them is just spin in a circle. And it basically, it's a useless trick. It's just something that we happen to have fun doing, but she likes doing it. And so sometimes if I've asked her to do something and she finds it a little tricky, she'll offer me a spin in the circle. Like, I'm not sure I understood that other one, Lynn. So how about if I offer you something that I know you've liked having me do before? So that shows me that that's something she's happy doing. So I use that as a reward for her. She's also got favorite agility obstacles. She loves going through the ribbon curtain. So like, okay, you've just worked really hard to back through the maze for me. So let's go trot through the ribbon curtain together because I know you enjoy doing that. So it's like a little play break. And so depending on whether your horse is high energy and wants to go do something more playful, Bronze sometimes considers a canter a play break. Like, yeah, let's on this brisk day, let's go have a canter. So we do something we already know they're going to enjoy. Mm-hmm.
Well, what I love is, two things. You're sneaking in cross training without
yes,
about it, right? So I think that's wonderful. I mean, you have all these different ways for the horse to physically use his body, which I love. I'm always trying to get people to cross train more, but also just listening to you speak, what you're describing is making those horses overall daily structure more intrinsically rewarding is what it sounds like. I mean, within each session,
Yes.
you're making their activities a pleasant and rewarding experience for them, where they take a measure of pride, or, feel a little, look at me, I just did haunches in. And I think that has a cumulative effect. So,
Well, I think it does, because what I try to do is not to have rewards be just a quid pro quo. Okay, you performed, you get a reward. But I want to make our whole interaction rewarding for the horse, so that he feels good being with me. So he assumes that some good things will happen when we get together. So I try to have as many activities as possible that he enjoys. And even when I'm teaching something new, I try to go about it in a way that the horse can feel successful. I have a friend who is a genius at taking traumatized horses and turning them into solid citizens who love their jobs in, it seems like, no time at all. And her explanation is, I give them a job. But when I broke down, what does she consider giving the horse a job? Her idea of giving a horse a job is the horse has her undivided attention for the time that they're working. She provides the security and structure that makes horses feel safe and comfortable with her. She gives them the opportunities to explore new things. So that's engaging their curiosity and their investigative behavior. And as she's teaching each new thing, she gives them tiny, tiny little challenges so that they can be successful. And then, of course, when they're successful, they get the praise. And so each one of those is a confidence builder and a trust builder. So the horse is building confidence in his own ability to perform, and in his person's trust, in trusting his person that she's going to be looking out for him and she's not going to over challenge him. So all of these little successes add up to good feelings about himself. So you make somebody feel good about himself, of course he wants to be with you.
What I think is really cool about that example you just gave is, I think of sports that are difficult to learn skill-wise, like dressage, something like dressage. I mean, it's so technical, it's challenging for the horse and rider. And there is, inherently a lot of time spent kind of failing until, you get little wins along the way, but it is a lot of struggling around to try to get these complex things happening for you. And it can be, I mean, I think for the horses, it can be boring, but worse than that, sometimes they get very sour and resentful. But, also if the rider's honest with themselves, I think they feel a little defeated inside. And, I think what you've just offered here is something that I try to help riders with too, which is, yes, you want to learn to trot that perfect 20-meter circle with your horse round and on the bit and with him polished air. Like, we all want this, right? But if it is, if it's taking you a bit of time to get there, why not take 30 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever, and go do this little thing over here. Maybe it's straddling a pole, maybe it's opening a gate, or some little thing that you can be successful and engage the horse's curiosity, give them a little win, if you will, like what you just described. Sure, you're giving them a job, quote unquote, but it's a more creative approach. And therefore, I feel like a quicker, more effective approach most of the time.
Yes, I think so. And I think part of that is to make sure that you think of rewarding the effort. Don't wait for that 20-meter circle to be perfect. As soon as your horse has made an effort, he's focused, he's engaged, he's given you a couple of steps of his best effort, you've got to reward that so that he knows that he's good enough, because if you're waiting always for things to be perfect, then he's going to get frustrated. Then you need, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to, before Zoom kicks us off here, we have 10 more minutes, but before they kick us, I wanted to ask you about timing of rewards. So you've sort of teed us up for this, because I remember taking lessons in Europe, and at some of the riding schools, when we all finished the riding lesson, you'd go to the center of the arena and kind of pat your horse. You would dismount, the instructor would come around and often give them a lump of sugar. I don't know if they still do that, probably not. But, and the idea was that, well, by getting off the horse, giving him the sugar, you've just told him he did a good job for the last 45 minutes or whatever. And I always thought, God, do they really think, I mean, does the horse really stand there and process, like, I'm getting this sugar because of the last 45 minutes? Like, it always seemed a little random to me. But I did like praising the horse, but I think what you're offering us is a much more specific timing of offering rewards to our horses.
Yes, they need to know the minute they did it right. I mean, if I'm dancing, if I go to a dance lesson, which heaven forbid I would never do because I've got two left feet, but if I went to a dance lesson and somebody offered me a nice piece of chocolate after the lesson, I'm like, well, what parts did I do good? What parts didn't I do good? How do have a little more guidance here? And I think a lot of what we need to think of rewards, a lot of it as communication. We are communicating to the horse, yes, that's correct. Yes, that's what I want. Yes, I appreciate that effort. And so the more we convey to the horse, yes, that's what I'm asking for, the less often we need to say, no, that wasn't right. Because they're always going to work for the, yes, you did that well. I'm really happy with you. And the more often they hear, oh, that wasn't right, you've got to do that over. No, that wasn't right either. Then that makes them just not want to be there. So let's set them up for success and reward that and head them off before they make mistakes.
No,
and give them the guidance.
I love your dance example. That's kind of what I thought. Horses like, oh, you're getting sugar and you're getting praise. I mean, definitely that, I think, led to their overall good feeling about these random humans, Americans, who are, showing up and riding them, that nice loose rein and pad and whatnot. So, overall, it probably contributed to the sense of safety, but in terms of actual rewards, not so much.
Yeah, I think it could contribute to somewhat of a better feeling, but certainly in no way the communication that we can get from a reward.
Yeah. So before we run out of time, I'm just checking to see if any questions have come in. The few that were submitted on the Facebook page mostly related to food. One was a horse that got antsy around dinner time, and another was treat related. And then Sue O'Leary has also dropped a question here in the chat about, she missed the conversation about treats. If any of you are joining, that was our last Facebook Live video, but then Lynn and I also did a podcast episode on that, which I think was quite good. I know I'm biased, but yeah, the podcast is Best Horse Practices with Jack Ballou, and I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes ago. So you can have a listen there too if you're a podcaster. And then we have, let's see, Jane has asked a question. My horse loves my trainer. He will want to go right to her when we are taking a rest break. Can I use that as a reward? What do you think, Lynn?
I don't see why not. If that's something that makes the horse happy and then that makes it a reward, sure.
Yeah, I see. I noticed this as somebody who stands in the middle of an arena and teaches. I will notice a lot of riders when like, if I'll say, okay, take a walk break now, they get more relaxed. They get out of like do mode, and they get kind of relaxed and soft in their body. And the horse will often veer in towards the middle of the arena. I mean, I like to think it's because they like me, but I think more it's that they associate this sense of just relaxation and calm. And as we mentioned before, a little rest. Rest isn't bad. I mean, it is reward. So I always say, as long as they're not veering in and running me over without your control. The controlled thing.
Right. No, I think it's a nice compliment.
So yeah, if you strategically say, okay, we just made a flying change or whatever. Okay, now let's come down to the walk. Let's come into the trainer, have a quick pause. I think that could certainly be a reward. Like I say, as long as you're strategic about it.
Yeah, and actually, come to think of it, my bronze does the same thing. He likes my instructor, and we take a break, and he goes over to chat with her just like I'm chatting with her.
I love that. So we're out of time today, but I just want to, for those of you that are on the channel, we considered maybe doing a follow-up conversation. I'm consulting my notes and see you again in case you see me. And that was on creating a rewarding environment. And Lynn, correct me if I'm not saying this right, but creating an environment that is itself rewarding for your horse. So this would be different than like performance-based rewards, which is a lot of what we've covered here. And we had a comment come in on the Facebook page from Paul, who I think tied in with this. He was saying he gives his horse a good grooming with these hands-on gloves. I think those are the nubby gloves. He says it just puts his mare in a wonderful state of relaxation and calmness, and he thinks the ride is often better from there. So I think that kind of ties in with creating a rewarding environment. So if that is something that you all would be interested in having us chat about, then, message one of us or drop it on the Facebook page. And Lynn, somehow we're going to figure out how to put this recording somewhere, right? For those who weren't able to log in here.
We have to, because I've promised it to everybody. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay, so yeah, feel free to share with your friends. We have lots of fun doing these, and let us know how you like the Zoom format. It helps prevent the bots that are so prevalent on Facebook. And we'll catch you all in a future chat. Good to see you again, Lynn.
You too, Jack. And I love that idea of talking about a rewarding environment. I'd like to tee that up next.
Okay. Yeah, I love it too. So maybe we'll do it. All right.
Okay,
Thanks for
sounds good.
everybody.